Karahala, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Brakatawa, Brakatawa Shai, Brakatawa, Brakatawa Shai, Brakatawa, Brakatawa Shai, the water above Baal, called Kadash. I'd like to give double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that teaches truth, the 100% truth. Do a lesson this morning on a vision that I had last night. As I was laying in bed before I went to sleep, I was praying, made my prayer to the Lord. And I'm a person that dreams a lot normally, and usually about all type of various things. A lot of times, just a lot of weird stuff that's not related to the Bible. Just other things. But last night I was saying, Lord, I hadn't had a vision in a while, and if it's your will, I'd like to have another vision to see how things going to be. And plus, also when I have these visions, man, they're inspiring. It's uplift. To uplift my spirit. You know, and it was an uplifting vision because it was when we, according to this vision, we were getting our power back. And so it was a very good dream. It wasn't one where we were going through affliction or any of that. But let me get to the dream, and then I'll give some scriptures to give a breakdown on it. And the vision of power and regalness. So in this dream is a vision of power and regalness, us, gaining our power and becoming immortals and becoming a regal people again. Our whole demeanor, kind of changed in this dream. We were in this big, huge house with many different rooms, and men and women of Israel with big brother Yahushua. He was on the premises, he was in this area. I'm going to kind of break this dream up in two parts. I'm kind of starting in this part, even though the dream didn't begin here. And I just kind of would put it together because this is where I wrote it out when I woke up. I didn't want to forget any parts of the dream, so I just started off when I woke up what I could remember and then kind of go back and fill in the pieces. We were in this big, huge house with many different rooms, and men and women of Israel with big brother Yahushua. And we were beginning to receive our powers that was slowly transforming us. It was like a process. We had Edomites around us, but they were noticing us becoming stronger and more united. So all this is happening inside of this house, man. I noticed in one corner of the house, was a bunch of Edomites sitting down in the chair just kind of observing us. And but they were noticing us becoming stronger and more united. That's one of the problems we have in Israel. There's a lot of division amongst our people, even amongst even amongst the doctrine. People that's out here teaching that we're Israelites. There's a lot of division, but they were noticing us becoming stronger and more united. There was no more envy against each other. And I think that kind of takes it back to the southern and the northern kingdom tribes. There's division there, which being created by Esau Edom, I had an Edomite that tried me. It was an Edomite that was around me, and you could tell the Edomite was thinking bad thoughts about the truth, and he kind of tried me in a way, or he or she. I think it was more of a she, and it was kind of like an older Edomite, probably in their 50s, but just had that nasty demeanor, and I picked up on it because in this dream, you can kind of like tell their spirit, their conscience. You can read them, and he had like a smirk on his face, and he was talking to another Edomite, or she was talking to another Edomite. Shalaka, because I'm going to have to keep breaking up and try to remember the parts as I read. And I noticed that this Edomite tried me by being disobedient, because we were giving them things to do, telling them things, that they're supposed to be doing. and they were bucking pretty much. This main one was really bucking, and I was able to, with my hands, and exert power to cripple her in a insufferable pain. And I was like, in this dream, I was taking my hands, man. I had power in my hands, and I was pushing on the Edomite, and I was focusing on that Edomite, man. It was like he was crying out in pain and breaking down, and the other Edomites was observing this happening, Even the other Jakes was observing, because we didn't realize we had this power, and pretty much like almost crushed that Edomite, And other Jakes, we started getting excited because we realized we were gaining these powers, Let me go to the next. So the other Edomites that observed began to be very frightened, because they knew that they were doomed, They were going into hell like the same type of hell we was going through, and they didn't have any physical strength to be able to fight back against the power that we had. Other Jakes began to power up and to exhort their power and gifts. I believe we had a hard time, because I'm trying to put this together, because I wrote this down when I woke up in the middle of the morning and tried to lay it out. So a lot of words are misspelled trying to put it together. Other Jakes began to power up and to exhort their power and gifts, because a lot of them had a hard time believing if it were true. Some of them was like, is this a dream state? Is this really true? That we have this power. And once they realized that, because a lot of times when you see people do things, you're able to do it yourself. I remember I used to be in the weight room a lot, and I see somebody push up, a large amount of weight, and I automatically put in my mind, if they can do it, I know I can do it. And I get there, and my strength, I'm able to push that weight and even more. That was when I was younger. So a lot of these Jakes saw, what I had done, and they started tapping into their power, man. And like I said, when I did that, I didn't realize I could do it. But I could feel the power growing in me, started learning these different things. Now, in this dream is going to, we had Israelite women that were saved. And I remember it was probably like about 5 of them that were together. And the women that were saved with us in the house, they were very humble, because like they were brought to this place, and they was kind of very humble, kind of. They weren't like these women that you see here today in Babylon, very arrogant, proud, they look you dead in the eye, and and argue you down about anything. These women, you could tell they've been through a lot, and Lord has saved them and brought them there. That's what I think the dream was trying to tell me too, man, about some of the women that's going to be saved, because we do have women that are in this truth, that are on the sideline here in Babylon the Great. They're going through just as much hell as the brothers going through. And they're going to be saved out of all the hell that's going to happen here in this place. And the women that were saved with us in this house were very humble. And I was telling them that they were regal, and to hold their heads up around these other nations, because they were kind of like carrying themselves like they were these other nations. And said, it's the power that the Lord has given us now, We have this power, and the Lord has chosen us, and we know we are special people. And they began to, stand up straight, to hold their heads up, no crazy makeup, no crazy wigs on their head, just looking beautiful, man. They started to grow in their continence and in their beauty. And it started to They just stood a certain way from these other nations, and you notice them. I was telling them to carry themselves regally, and they were chosen to be here for this special occasion. These were women who suffered in Babylon. Okay, hold on. I had to break this thing up because they had a lowly spirit on them at the time. And I think in a dream they were they belonged to their husbands, and some of them had already been delivered because their husbands were in the truth, who were of high regard. And I was able to fly out. Okay, let's take another part of the vision. I was there. I was up in the top part of this. It's kind of like a house, a tree house, however you want to. It was kind of like built into the landscape. Um, it's not like a regular mansion. It's like just different rooms over different parts of the house. You know, there's a lot of different rooms in there. And I was up in the top part of this mansion, and for some reason I knew I had this power that I could, the ability to fly, and I jumped out one of the openings, the window like glass, anything. I jumped out and started flying down to the bottom. Let me see what happened. I can't remember. Or I started to fly down to the bottom to look for my wife and to correct those other nations, because we had these other nations out there working, man. Working for the kingdom, doing our bidding. They were servants unto us. So it was giving them orders and things to do. And I was able to fly in order to organize and get things done. But at the same time, I was looking for my wife also. And I'm kind of getting into that because in the back part of the story is going to tell how I met her and how she was, kind of give a detailed description of her. I was able to fly out the top of this window and to look for my wife and to correct those other nations. Other brothers had these powers as well, and it was manifesting upon us. You could just see other brothers, just powering up, man. You could just see them getting their power and start learning their gifts, things that was given to them from Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. Okay, this goes about how I met my wife because she had looked out for me earlier when I was at a club. Now this takes to another part of the scene. This is the beginning of the dream, actually. I kind of worked it in reverse. Now the dream first began, I was like at a club or something. And about time the club was getting ready to close, I didn't have any transportation to get to this house that that I wanted, the house of that I just described. And I know after the club I was supposed to head to this house, and I didn't have any transportation. And this is how I met this woman, this Israelite woman, because she had looked out for me earlier when I was at the club. She provided me with her vehicle for transportation to get to the house. It was like some type of I got these electric scooters now that you can sit on and ride and go different places. It was something similar to that, but it just had a lot of speed. It was like souped up, a lot of power. And I remember she provided me with this vehicle transportation to get to the house. And I remember riding this vehicle, man. It was like very dangerous. I was like scared, And I was scared that this vehicle was going to crash because it had so much power. And my first time riding it. It was like a dangerous route to get there. But I had confidence that I knew I wasn't going to fall, and I, ended up making it to the house. So let me see. Once I arrived at the house, we later again, because when I was riding this thing, I'm gonna get this woman back her vehicle that she loaned me. I don't even know her name or any way of finding her. But once I got to this house, we eventually ended up meeting there. I saw her again at the house, you know. So I guess it's kind of telling me in the dream, you know, those who look out for us, or who those who help the um the prophets. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, but those who help the prophets, man, they're going to be saved, man. And once I arrived at the house, we later found each other. I believe she worked at the club. She was like some type of server girl. And she was very beautiful. I remember she had a soft, sweet spirit about her. She had beautiful dark brown skin. I believe she was from another tribe, the tribe of Levi. And she had, you know, natural hair, beautiful, glowing, radiant brown skin. And she was from the tribe of Levi. But I recognized her at the time in the dream as being Haitian, you know. My travel to the house on this souped up type scooter was very dangerous. I remember being fearful that I might crash, but for some reason I was confident and proceeded. The house was no ordinary house. It had many rooms, but built like a tree house that was incorporated into the earth. I remember there was a spirit that came over. Okay, let me see. That came over, you know, like I said, the men and women that was there. It was like we was somehow um, somehow appeared in this room, man, you know, in this house, and everybody kind of like, you know, dazed, you know, trying to figure out what the hell what was going on, you know. I guess, you know, you see some of those rescue stories, people get rescued and put on a boat. We was kind of like that, and then, you know, we were just growing in our power and our strength. And also, I remember in this dream, we was up in this um, part of the house in the near window or opening, and it was like sets of dogs in different places. There was two dogs in front of me and my feet. Further out in the distance, it was some dogs out there and some dogs off to the right. And these dogs started fighting each other. The two dogs in front of me started fighting each other at my feet, and I kind of pushed them out of the way. And the dogs to the right, they was fighting each other, and the other dogs, they began to fight. And I remember one of the brothers saying, you know, that's a spirit that's put out there that's that's making them fight, you know. All of a sudden these dogs are fighting each other. And I attribute that to the other nations, you know, that made gain off of us. You know, you go back to Lazarus and the rich man and talk about the dogs that licked his wounds. Well, the dogs represent these other nations that made usury off of us. You know, they made gain off of us, mainly here in Babylon the Great. You know, they always set their stores up in our hoods, and they make money off and merchandise off of us. You know, Moab got the wig store, the beauty supplies that they make money off of us. The You know, you got the 7-Elevens, all these stores are ran by the Indian people. So so these dogs began to fight each other. They had a spirit that came over them, like the same type of spirit Israel have on that we have on us right now under these curses, where we can't get along with one another. You know, we always fighting amongst each other, always trying to get over on each other. So I remember the people being so okay. The dogs started fighting each other. I remember the people, talk about us Israelites, being so excited about being delivered and receiving the promise. You know, we started realized that we received the promise. I also remember some Edomites. I knew that once they saw my power, these some Edomites that I knew throughout my life, they was there. And I remember thinking, man, you know, they're gonna catch hell, you know. And I remember some Edomites that I once knew, and they saw my power. You know, when I afflicted that other Edomite, they saw the power that I had, and they bowed down, you know, and they began to try to sneak away. They snuck away. I didn't see them anymore. And I remember my princess being very humble and obedient to me and loyal. That's what I remember about, like I said, the woman that I was dealing with. They're not queens, they're princes. And her being very obedient and very loyal, because, women right now, they created a rift between us and our women. And the women, to us, they most of the women, for the most part, look down on us. They talk sternly against us, but those things are going to change. Our women are going to be loyal to us once again. They're going to obey the law, statutes, commandments, and the order that the Lord had put in place. So let me go through and hit some precepts that go with this. St. Matthew chapter 24 and 7. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be families and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. Let me see, is that what I want? No, that's not it. Shalakia. Shalakia. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 1 through 2. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they look for. So they're going to see this power that these other nations are going to see this power that we're going to receive, and they're going to be at awe at us being saved, man, delivered out of all these things is going to happen on earth, because something that they never seen before, us being delivered, and being blessed with these spiritual gifts. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31. But they that wait upon the Lord Yahweh shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. So we're going to receive our spiritual gifts, man, our power. And we're going to be able to do a lot of things, like be able to read minds, being able to appear in another place just by thinking about it. I forget what they call that. And be able to fly, be able to run, special power, extra strength to do things, Isaiah chapter 11, verse 13. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. Let's talk about the northern and the southern kingdoms. There's a division amongst us. This shows the complete healing of our division. And this is what when I put the Fear the Dream into ChatGPT, it gave me back these precepts and gave me an explanation of the dream. And I went over it and I saw these precepts line up with the dream. The book of Psalms, chapter 149, verse 7 through 9. To execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishment upon the people. To bind their kings with chains and their nobles with feathers of iron. To execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. So these heathens are going to get their reward, man, for being wicked and what things that they done to us during this time, man, during this time in their kingdom, during their rulership. Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. So all the other nations are going to bow down to us, man, to our power. Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. John chapter 14, verse 2. In my Father's house are many mansions. And if it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. This shows Yahweh's promise of places prepared for the elect. And we know that it's like in a dream, it was just kind of allegorical, but we know in our Father house, in our Father mansions are many, Father house are many mansions. And it's talking about, we're going to have dominion over the whole earth, the galaxy, other planets. We're going to, with our wives, we're going to go and populate and refill these other planets, man. The whole universe is going to be ours, not just here on earth. Okay, let's go. The next one is going to be Isaiah chapter 4, verse 1. And in that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel, only to be called by thy name, to take away our reproach. And we're just not going to take any women, man, because a lot of these women, man, have done so wickedly out here. A lot of them going to just be destroyed. But there are women here in Babylon the Great, and we're going to have women, because we scattered all 4 corners of the earth. A lot of Israelite women scattered other places too, but mainly here in Babylon the Great, there are some women that fell into this truth and have been obedient, man. And they're going to receive a great reward for, keeping their mouth shut, doing what the Lord told them to do in this time. Being obedient. Because right now we're in a society where they push the women to elevate her, and she has all these rewards, man. But for women to turn back that and to fall back to worship her God, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and to be obedient, she's going to receive a great reward in the day of the Lord, man. And I think that's one of the significant parts of that dream that was brought out to me to remind these women that who are listening to not give up and to hold on, man. They're going to be rewarded greatly. Proverbs chapter 31, verse 10, last precept. Who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is above rubies? Now, I remember this woman in this dream, man. She was definitely a very good helpmate. She helped me get to where I needed to be to make it to this big house. And she was always there to help me whenever I needed help with anything that I was working on. And her being very humble in spirit, man. But that's pretty much it of the dream, like I said, had it like early this morning. So I went on and started putting it in my phone, while I would still remember, because a lot of times you wake up, you can't recall these parts of the dream. So I had to put it together like that. And hopefully it made sense. And, I think the Lord gave it to me to put the message out with that. Say shalom.